Please tell us how you got interested in athletic training and give us a brief synopsis of your career.
Playing football. Tore my knee up. The unhappy triad, including the PCL. Was repaired, but not in the way that it should have been. It was a different day when it was done. And I decided that I wanted to stay around my friends. And at the time, we had an athletic trainer whose name was Rick Netzel, and I became good friends with Rick. You know, it's one of those times where a student, sometimes you become friends with your mentors, and ultimately I became good friends with him. He encouraged me. I went to Bowling Green State University. Looked at a lot of different ones, but I ended up at Bowling Green. And at Bowling Green with Bill Jones, Mike Maceras. There are so many people that touch your lives as you're growing and as a professional. Jane Steinberg, things that they did and helped me with was very important. And on a personal level, they were very helpful because during my sophomore year, I lost my mom, and they helped kind of work through that. So there were a number of things that I learned, and they helped, and we talked at times, and I think it was important that you learned that it's important to learn things and have a good background, but it also became, and I started, and this was a philosophy that I kind of became, was each person that was ever a mentor to me or that I worked with, I tried to look at the things that were the best thing about them and tried to emulate that, tried to take that one. Have I done a good job with it? I don't know. And that goes through coaches and everything else. But I finished my degree at Bowling Green, and I got a call from Bill Jones and said, hey, there's this job in Toledo, up in this place called Maumee, and you should go apply for it. At which point I called, went up, interviewed with the head coach and everybody else, and I had to laugh because I went to Massillon Jackson, which was purple and gold. And when I walked into Maumee, it was purple and gold. And I made that comment, and that kind of stuck with them. And 2 weeks later, I was hired as the athletic trainer at Maumee. At the time, we were a lighthouse district. It allowed us to do many, many things. It allowed me then to go to the first meeting. Second or third group through, I became a rep from the Northwest. Threw my hat in the ring to be on the licensing board. And there were names in that group that I was just a young athletic trainer. I'm thinking, there's no way. But I had some people who wrote some letters to the governor, but I also had somebody that knew the governor. And when it finally came push to shove, I was named as actually not as the high school, because back then it was high school, professional, college, and an at-large. I was the at-large. And so I got an opportunity to start to make a difference at that point. And I saw some of the biggest names of the time as athletic trainers building our association. Skip Foster, Billy Hill. And, I just, it was something that I continued to grow and tried to do as good a job as I could as a member of that board. My experiences I had a lot of them. I mean, I got to work with the U.S. Olympic wrestling team. At the World Cup. I've worked with semi-pro teams. I've worked in a clinical setting. So over the years, I've got to do a lot of different things. So I have an empathy for a lot of different types of things professionally. And, probably the hardest part was raising a family. son and daughter, another little son who's only 6. But that's probably just as important as my time spent in the athletic training room. And there's a lot of balance in trying to balance that. So, and now here I sit as a member of the Hall of Fame, but also as the president of the association, because I still think of myself as a fairly young man. I got whiskers on during the wintertime. But
Please tell us what a typical day was like for you as a college student.
Get up with do morning treatments every day at Memorial Hall there at BG, and you'd spend your whatever time you had available in the morning doing that. Then we'd go on, and then obviously you'd go to class. You'd spend time in class doing whatever classes you had, and we always tried to be done in time for football. Football was in the afternoon. It would either start at 2:30, 3 o'clock, somewhere there. And you do football practice until it ended, do treatments. Then you had to go and study, go to the library, whatever you needed to do at that point. So it was pretty regimented in what we did.
How about your first job? How was a typical day like?
First job, obviously, was as a teacher. I mean, that was teaching health, being the athletic trainer thrown in, and being required to do all the sports that you have to was pretty daunting. And you do that, and you'd done about 6, 7 o'clock at night, depending on what was going on. Sometimes it was 10 o'clock at night. It just depended. And then you were also trying to write lesson plans and keep ahead of what you needed to teach as that first-year teacher.
How about a typical day right now?
It hasn't changed much. It's pretty much the same, except, I think the demands have become a little bit more even for me because we have more sports. I'm fortunate to have an assistant that helps with that, which gives us some flexibility to spend some time, because I have a junior in high school, and then I also have a kindergartner, and spending time with them is important. So I think that's one of the benefits as an athletic trainer at a high school, and being there at the high school as a teacher, is I can bring my youngest or even my older one, and they can come and be in the athletic training room and get a basketball and go play basketball or dribble it around or do whatever. So they're able to spend time with me. It's not quite as an intense, they have to stay out of practice, obviously, but it's not as an intense situation as you get sometimes when you're at the collegiate or professional, especially the professional.
How much was your first salary?
My first salary, I think all told, was about $21,000, somewhere in there. The athletic training end of it was, I want to say the first year was $2,000 or $2,100, something like that. So it wasn't very much.
How did you document things?
When we first started, it was all paper and pencil. I mean, I was fortunate because what I did is I took, everywhere I went, I would always pick up documents from the different colleges, how they did their injury recording, how they did, obviously we actually had little physical cards that were just a card. Now we have 3 or 4 pages, or it's online. But we started with that, but we then also, everything was written down. And when I first started, I had a 2-page injury form. Then we kind of shrunk it down to 1 page. But we also had, with that, we had an injury treatment log, a report to coaches, those types of things.
Last question. Would you please explain how your practice and or philosophy has changed throughout your career?
Practice has changed because I went from a room that was about 10 by 10 to what we would be basically a classic medical facility with therapy units, with whirlpools, with complete access to ice and taping and the ability to provide really quality health care to our athletes. I think that in those first days when the girls were yelling from out in the gym for, hey, Mr. McClurg, come out and tape us. And I had to go out and tape on an old wood bench that we pulled out, and they sat down and I taped them out there, to now having a facility where we can have student athletes, both male and female, come in, and also have student trainers come in. I think that's a huge change. I think the profession, we're much more aware of our role in the whole healthcare scheme of things, and I think that's where it's changed.